Hello and welcome to Warblog. This is a new type of video where I'm just going to talk about some developments. I've been messing around with this map, so it's nothing to do with this game. Just a few quick developments. I did some developments and I noticed that there were quite a few errors actually. Because I play by the rules, I noticed what I hadn't noticed is that you could move your units. Can't do it now because I fixed it, but only God knows how long you've been able to move your units over the rivers. But you can't do that now because I fixed it. Because I hadn't been trying, I hadn't noticed. But anyway, so developments, you might be able to spot a few, but then we just maybe just go straight to it. First thing, well, we've got forwards. You can't see the ford. Of course you can. The little forwards are down there. Some of these things are pretty difficult to see. Well, let's basically just cut to the chase. We've got fords, bridges, and tracks. We've also got some other things that's actually in play, but I just haven't finished exactly what they're all about. But basically, we've also got highways. So we've got streams, but I haven't configured the streams or the highways yet. But the highways are actually configured in the way that they work. I just haven't configured the counters yet. So let's just move these units over. No, I didn't want to do that. That's because it's the US turn. Okay. So I'm talking absolute nonsense here, really. I've also reconfigured the way roads, paths, and highways actually work. Before, roads were just giving you a plain one movement, which I sort of think is okay. But I have opted for, because I've now got three types of roads, they should all have variable effects on the terrain type that they're in. And to cut a long story short, I've just basically made trials 0.75 of the terrain, roads half the value of the terrain they're in, and highways 0.25 of the value that they're in. So I can change those variables if I want. So this is jungle, which, if you look at infantry, is 2 movement points. So in theory, this unit would have to move 2 movement points, but because it's got a road, when I move this unit, which I can't because he's not American, so let's move this unit into there, which would be, well, no, we'll move this unit along this road into there. So that would ordinarily be 2 movement points because it's going into a jungle, but because it's a road, it's half. So he should only pay 1. That's right, isn't it? Leaving him 2 movement points left, which is sort of what they were before. But I think what you'll find is that I'm not sure how. That's why I said long story short, because I haven't really thought about it. I think you do one or the other, but if you're going through mountains, you don't get as much. Anyway, so we've got trails here. So let's move. Let's move him a little further down that way. Let's give it in that turn. So size to end. So essentially, he's on a trail. these are actually trails, but it's the only one I've done so far in the game. So he's artillery. So artillery through jungle is 2 movement. So that should cost him 0.75 of 2. So it should cost him 1.5. He's got 3 movements, so he's got 3 movement at the moment. So if I move into there, it should be 1.5. Yes. I would sort of postscript this, expect errors, but I've been working on it for a few hours, and well, basically the whole thing just didn't plain work. Plain old work, it didn't work. It was just full of errors. But I think I've solved most of them, and solving those errors put most things back on track. Still haven't tried a few of the other things like airborne insertion, so I'm assuming they should all work. But what I'm trying to get to here, very slowly, is this. I think I've already demonstrated. There's a ford. So the reason I'm doing the fords at this point is because this is actually Nakdong Bulge, and the North Koreans came across fords, and I just didn't want to put in bridges just to sort of get them across the river. So I thought I'll bite the bullet and put in fords. I've been meaning to do fords for a while. So a ford is a place where you can get across the river, but obviously it's a little more time consuming than a bridge. In this case, it's quite interesting, really, because although this isn't really anything to do with what I'm talking about, the North Koreans actually built a what do you call it when it's underwater? A submersed bridge. I can't remember. There's a proper word for it, like subterranean bridge, but it wasn't. Basically, they built an underwater bridge. And I thought, what the hell's an underwater bridge? It's actually pretty simple, really. They just put loads of sandbags and logs and so presumably they just made a very shallow crossing that wasn't going to get swept away by the river. Maybe, a foot deep, maybe a bit more here and there, but, that was what they did. But it doesn't matter. They actually came across, they waded across. They got across, basically. That was the whole point of how the North Koreans crossed the river and assaulted the US positions. They even got heavy artillery and tanks across. Not a huge amount, but about 2 regiments in total. But that's what this game is actually all about. So I've put the fords in. So let's see what this unit's got. This unit has no movement. This unit has no movement. Well, they're not churning because they've been sort of twiddled. With the details, let's find one. He's out of movement. He's got some movement. So he's got 3 movement. So ordinarily, to get into jungle would be 2 movement. So he's going to move in there, and in theory, he's now got no movement. So the point there being that to cross a ford takes all your movement. You still have to have, I'm just guessing this. I mean, you still have to have the movement to get in there in the first place. So you still need 2 for the jungle, but whatever you've got left, it basically takes up all your turn. The next step that I will be putting in there, I haven't done this yet. There's still a few things that I just haven't done. You have to have started on the other side, so you actually got to spend your whole turn. So if you're armor, you couldn't sort of travel. If you're armor, you couldn't travel. Like 1, 2. You could start there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and cross. You'd have to start there. I'm trying to make fords expensive, but still quite doable, because I can put fords in all over the place, and there's going to be a lot of games where I'll be able to go back and put some fords in and really change the gameplay. Also, I think these rivers, I've never really been too happy with the way they sort of just stop all movement and require a road to go over. Now, one of the problems I've got is that going over, basically, you can cross a river if it's got a road going over it, but that's not how I've ever intended it to be. It's just, it's just how far I've got. So the other thing that you can see on here are bridges. So I've got two of them, one there, one there. Now the graphics are not that brilliant, but they're not that bad either. But you know, the whole point of a lot of this is that I will be upgrading the graphics. The bridges look pretty snazzy. I think the fords are a bit difficult to see there. So is the path, but you know, in the long run, I'll be upgrading these. But the point is, we've now got bridges. Now the bridges will not do anything for a while, so there's no gameplay on the bridge. They're just physically there. I just put them in as a bridge, and so there'll be a bridge there, a bridge there, a bridge there. But the point of the bridges will be that in the future you will need a bridge to cross the river, not the road. The road will factor in on your travel over the river, but that's going to be quite difficult to do because I will have to somehow factor in I'll have to figure out how to work that for all the other games. There's quite a few games now that you know I can't just sort of back. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I just can't sort of do it all, you know, backward engineer everything. So, but bridges are going to be in there, and the point I'm really trying to get to there is that you will be able to blow them up, and you'll also be able to build them. So that's a long way down the road. So just to sort of recap, the things that have been added are essentially well, we've got now three types of road. We've got paths, tracks, as I'm calling them, tracks. We've got roads, which are the standard things you can see, and what you can't see here, but it's pretty much all good to go. Just need to make the counters, the maths is there, are highways, and highways are essentially motorways. So they will be introduced slowly bit by bit. We've got the bridge elements, which are more aesthetic at the moment. We've got fords, which are functioning, so allow units to cross, expending full movement across a ford. And we've also got the other thing that you can't see here that I haven't. It is actually sort of configured, but not fully. So it's only part configured, but that's streams. So the next step will be to somehow define rivers and streams. So I think what I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I think I'm going to upgrade the river tiles that you can see there. That's a river. Just make them slightly bigger, and then introduce a much smaller but still visible blue stream feature. I mean, obviously, you know, to get the difference, but a stream will be readily crossable like a ford. So you won't need a ford. It will just mean that possibly to cross a stream, you just need +1 extra movement, or it's you know, plus half of whatever the terrain you're moving into. So if you're going into jungle, it would be 3 movement to go into the jungle. But if you were going into desert, it would only be 1.5 or something like that. You know, a factor of where you're going into. I haven't really thought about it, but I have got the streams in there. So we've got the streams. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. But and obviously the new feature is that I am now doing videos on new features, because I sort of want to keep people up to date maybe with developments, and also to know that developments are being made, but I don't really want to sort of put them on the Facebook page, because Facebook isn't, I'm not particularly convinced that Facebook's much use really, but the YouTube videos are good. I think, you know, they're good resources to look at, and you can sort of see the latest ones. So I've successfully spent 15 minutes talking nonsense really, but I mean, I don't think it's too much nonsense. You know, there's quite significant developments really if you've been following the game. So, and there will be more to come. So stay tuned, and if you want to see how these little features fit into gameplay and on any of the games you can see here in the future, sign up and you can play them all at your leisure. Cheerio.